Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The Cross River State Governor, Bassey Otu, in February this year, announced efforts being made by his administration to reclaim the 76 oil wells that were ceded to Akwa Ibom State in 2012, following a judgment of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. The Apex Court in 2012 ruled in favor of Akwa Ibom State in the dispute involving the rightful owners of the oil wells, dismissing Cross River's appeal. The judge who delivered the lead judgment had stated that Cross River lost its status as a littoral state following the cession of the Bakassi Peninsula to Cameroon in 2008. Consequently, the state was deemed ineligible to claim offshore oil wells. Joining us now to have a discussion around this is Honorable Cletus Obun, who was a member of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council during the last elections. Good to see you. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the morning show. Cletus, can you hear us?
Thanks for having me this morning on this very topical issue that is of good cheer to the Cross River persons and to Cross River State government and the people of Cross River State.
Right, topical issue
over the years.
Yeah, topical issue indeed. Now, what is, in your assessment, what is the feasibility or even the likelihood of the success for Cross River State in reclaiming these 76 oil wells, like as I've highlighted in my introduction, considering the previous court ruling? Now, what do you think? What specific new arguments or strategies might the Cross River State government be employing at this time? Are there any new legislative or political avenues that the governor, that is Governor Otu, could pursue to address this issue beyond, a direct legal challenge?
Yes, indeed. It's going back to the status quo ante, which is what most of us who were involved in this entire program and saga that put Cross River State in perilous economic straits over the time. At the time, I think it was 2008 or thereabout, and then it was under the regime of Governor Liali Moke. But government being a continuum, it was only proper that this issue, painful as it was to the Cross Riverians, and strange as it was to all those who heard that Cross River State is not a littoral state. By the very name Cross River, presupposes that we are sitting on a water trog. And for us to turn around not to be having any boundary with the river is itself very strange and contradictory. Coming from the Supreme Court, which is the last court of the land, it was left for us to seek other avenues. In the first place, Cross River and Akwa Ibom are too close, like the nose and the eye. Whatever affects Akwa Ibom will affect Cross River, and whatever affects Cross River will affect Akwa Ibom. And I remember at that time that it was the present president of the Senate who was the governor. And speaking with him, he was very reluctant resolving the matter in court. But some misadvice, some misunderstanding by the legal team from Cross River State insisted on a court resolution. Under the Duke administration in 2003-2004, that matter was resolved by President Obasanjo politically, and we had thought that it would continue as such. If you know the history of the oil wells, it was 90 oil wells. It was a political resolution by Obasanjo then, which brought us to 76, giving 14 to Akwa Ibom and 76 to Cross River. And when the 76 were now in contention, it was strange to some of us because we had left government at a point. And so it was difficult for us to directly participate and bring institutional memory to bear. And this is the reason we must act that legislation, governance, and indeed public space should be occupied by those who have and are familiar with facts. In that way, you bring institutional memory to bear in dealing with state issues. Otherwise, this matter wouldn't in the first place have gone to court. Having gone to court and the decisions having been taken, at the time, the present governor was a senator. He was in the Nigerian Senate where all this brouhaha was going on. And of course, not being in the executive position, it was difficult for him or any other person in Cross River at that time. We had the Senate leader at that time, Senator Ndomegba, who was also sitting at the Senate. We had the Attorney General of the state at that time, Shortchanged, and then we had our lawyers. But again, the governor of Akwa Ibom at that time had pleaded that the matter should be taken off the court and that there should be a political resolution. Today, we are going back to the political resolution, which was where we ought to have started from and where we took off from in 2004. Now, what has been discovered and which is bringing us back to the table, is that Akwa Ibom will not be happy to see cross-riverians starving and suffering from kwashiorkor while they are living in affluence. That would be the height of the brotherhood we preach in our national anthem. In brotherhood we stand. There will be no brotherhood, and there can be no better brotherhood than Akwa Ibom and Cross River State. So to that extent, I am very sure that even the present Akwa Ibom State Governor, being a pastor as well, has also come to the agreement that there was some a technical hitch that misinformed the facts that were presented before the Supreme Court. And they are ready now to go back to the table. And what has happened? It was discovered that over the UNCLOS law, the law of the sea, the 200-mile watermark, which is supposed to now take you into offshore and onshore, a very matter which Attar at the time, Governor Attar at the time, with Donald Duke, had argued that the onshore-offshore oil matter, which also brought about the heated debate about resource control, brought about this entire saga. And today, Nigerians will need to know that Cross River State indeed was shortchanged when that decision was taken by court, because there was improper measurement of the mileage and the distancing that would have made Cross River State not to be a littoral state. How did it happen? It was discovered only recently with empirical evidence and remapping of the sea and the distancing from the seashore that we have more than 25 nautical miles. 25 nautical miles between Eket and Calabar, and between the oil wells and the oil rigs offshore that would naturally have put the base in Calabar rather than in Eket. But at the time, the governmental structure and those controlling the instruments of power, Governor Swene, at that time a military administrator, had to take that base, which is why we found out that mobiles moved from Calabar to Lagos and from Lagos to Eket at the time. Today, they have gone back to take the measurements and take the straits, and discovered in the presence of the Surveyor General of the Federation, Surveyor General of Cross River State, Surveyor General of Akwa Ibom State, and the legal team went into the ship and down to redo the measurements, and came to the conclusion that there was some injustice. All we are waiting for now, really, to tell the world is to announce that we are about to get the signature of the president to agree that some injustice was done, some error was made, direct human error, I must say, because I know that Governor Godswill Akpabio, as he then was, had insisted that there was no need to go to court. Indeed, immediately after that judgment was made, he was so sad that he considered that a certain amount be given, that Cross River couldn't have lost Bakassi with all the oil wells therein, and then the remaining oil wells on the Nigerian side were again taken by Akwa Ibom, making Cross River State a total orphan and stripping it of anything that would bring about economic survival of the state. That is where we are. Indeed, if you remember, AMCON had to even take Tinapa, which was started by Donald Duke. AMCON had to take it over because we couldn't meet up our own partnership funding. The ranch, which was heavily invested upon to the point where even ECOWAS had to hold its meeting in the ranch, went down and was completely desolate. The ranch airstrip was completely shut down while the last governor took off with the cargo airstrip in Obudu. All that was down. From 5 aircraft and 5 flights a day to Calabar, as I speak to you today, the highest we get in a day is 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. And by weekends, as we speak now, there is no flight to Calabar. It took this government. That is how bad it was, and how the seizure of the 70 oil wells have brought Calabar. How can you say Calabar, come and live and be at rest, become a place of turbulence and perdition? That is where we were brought to, until this governor now came in, and one by one, he has taken back Tinapa. He has pulled out 18 billion naira to bring Tinapa, Obudu Cattle Ranch, Kwa Falls, and Agbokum Waterfall back into their normal status and make them economically viable. 2 aircrafts have just been acquired, and he has gone to insist that the rural population and the youth population should stop looking for government jobs of earning 70,000 when a bag of cocoa is 1.2 million. So he's brought about it and introduced high quality, drought resistant and pest resistant coffee species to Cross River State. Over 30 million has just been brought into the place with the high and lowland species of the coffee and all that. So the 76 oil wells coming back to Cross River State is a big elixir, it's a big elevator, and one huge achievement of this government under 2 years. And I think that Prince Otu should be commended by Cross Riverians and all those who participated in ensuring that, especially the federal government and the President Tinubu, for listening to us, and our brothers in Akwa Ibom, because they already have more than 1,000 oil wells. Akwa Ibom is presumably one of the highest oil producing states in Nigeria. So looking for some oil wells and depriving Cross River does not add anything to them.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks for establishing this massive, sometimes emotional subject matter. But then I'm wondering, and there are two questions here for you, Honorable Obun. First will be that you are commending the governor for expressing a desire and for going ahead to go and remap certain areas offshore that shows that you are still a littoral state. But then at what point does this move from a desire to a concrete action plan, given the fact that the governor of Akwa Ibom State, Umoeno, has said repeatedly that the case of the 76 oil wells ceded to Akwa Ibom State is dead and buried, and that you can revisit a matter legally which had gone to the Supreme Court twice, and twice Akwa Ibom came victorious. So what precisely are you trying to do? Is it to plead with Akwa Ibom State? Is it to get the president and the Senate president, who is a former governor of Akwa Ibom, to assist Cross River State in pleading with Akwa Ibom to seek a political resolution, rather than for you to say, okay, there are fresh facts, let's go back to court and let's revisit the case? That's number one. Number two is that you claim that Cross Riverians are about starving and that they might go hungry, kwashiorkor and everything. On what basis, sir? Just last year, your IGR in Cross River State moved from 22 billion to 46 billion, even though 45 billion was the target that your government set. Now for this year, 2025, you are hoping to do a lot more than that. Your state, you alluded to the fact that is the state of tourism. Why are you jettisoning tourism for oil and gas that will dry up at some point? How can Cross Riverians go hungry if you have succeeded in almost doubling your IGR in 1 year and you've got all the assets, tourism assets that you can tap into? Why oil every time, Honorable Obun?
Well, maybe you misconstrued or misunderstood me. I said to you that when the 76 oil wells were taken in 2007, 2008, 2009, that Cross Riverians and all their activities, economic activities, shut down. I'm speaking facts. I am saying to you that up till today we have not recovered, especially giving you using, if the number of visitors to a state is a determinant of the economic activities of that state and the socio-economic activities of that state, then Cross River State moving from 5 flights a day between 1999 and 2012 to 1 flight a day, especially during weekends, it tells you that there's a downturn in the economic activities. Two, I said to you that the ranch went down and comatose. It was not because we had any monies or that we were depending on oil. It was that we were sustained by oil at that point. Nigeria itself has been sustained by oil and is being sustained by oil till today. We have other tourism sites all over the country. Are you suggesting to me even Lagos that gets the kind of IGR that it has? Are you suggesting to me that it doesn't depend on oil money and the oil revenues that accrue to it? What we are saying is that before now, that's what we suffered. With the removal of oil subsidy by the president and oil accruing, that is why you are seeing us, for example, the present governor is an economist himself, a first-class economist, who has been in the banking sector, in the private sector, a successful businessman, and has been in the parliament, and has been, today is governor of the state. So he came in and went straight to work. And that is why you are getting what you are getting. You are talking about 22 to 43 to 45. Today we are hitting 90 billion as I speak to you with IGR. What has he done? He turned around the economy, and I've said to you, he is not promising, he is not desiring As I said, last week, today is Sunday, this last week, Tuesday, he released 18 billion to revive the 4 industries and 4 economic centers that I'm talking, economic hubs that I'm talking about. The Obun Cattle Ranch, the Kwa Falls in Obun in Akamkpa, the Agbokun Waterfalls in Etung in Ikom, and Tinapa are to share that 18 billion and ensure that they revamp the places. If that happens, the tourism you are talking about comes on. Over 80%, nearly 90% of the Obun Cargo Airport has been completed. So before the end of this year, Obun Cargo Airport will be operational. And of course, like I said, before then, as we speak now, about 60% of Obun Cattle Ranch is almost revamped. With the release of this money now, the young man sitting there, Sunday Michael, will definitely have to make Obun Ranch come up alone. And as you speak now, we may be speaking from the ranch and not from Abuja. I can tell you that. So also, I can say to you that Cross River State is no longer talking about starving, but that it will improve on its revenue. Is there any money that you can say is too much with so much to do, with so much unemployment? So Cross River State, if they were starving and are no longer starving, does not mean in any case, if a governor like a former governor, former speaker, former minister, speaker for 8 years, governor for 8 years, minister for 8 years is telling you that he's hungry. What will you expect of an ordinary farmer, an ordinary civil servant in the state? But again, like I said, the governor of the Cross River State in 2 years have done so much to ensure that, one, that this cry cannot give us national award or accolades, that he must go to work and make his people feed. He has paid so much of the pensions, so much of the gratuities, regular salaries and all that, because he has gone to use his brain to think outside the box and generate enough funds to be able to fund what he is doing today. But an additional 76 oil wells will be an added advantage to us. And you ask the question, how do we intend to deal with the matter since it has been concluded in court? And I started by telling you that we have returned to where we ought to have started, which was a political solution that we had between 2002 and 2004, where we had to make sure that these 90 oil wells were monies generated from there were put in an escrow account until there was a political solution in which 76 were given to Cross River and 14 to Akwa Ibom, which is the story of the 70 oil wells. It was 90 oil wells. What happened was that Obasanjo intervened and said, don't go to court. So when somebody said it had gone to court twice, there was no court under Donald Duke and Atta, Governor Atta. Both of them went for a political resolution, which came out. And I remember that by 2004, when it was resolved by the Obasanjo regime in his second coming, he gave Cross River, in fact, the money that accrued was given to Cross River 2.4 billion at that time, which was big money for Cross River. And I know that that was how the Tinapa matter, the matter of the ranch, Protea Hotel was leased. Protea Hotel got a lease to do Obun Cattle Ranch, and it was so good that even the presidential lodge is there. You have the resort down the ranch valley, and then there was to be an expansion of the airport. So Akwa Ibom and Cross River will come to a political resolution once again. That is where we are now, and that's what we are saying. And given that the actors are still alive, which is the President of the Senate, President Akpabio, and of course the Governor of Cross River State, both of them former legislators, a political solution is definitely on their way.
Absolutely, Honorable Cletus. Thank you so much for expatiating on the economic viability of your state at this time. Now we want to understand what exactly, Cross River is pushing for. Because we remember in 2008, this was made very public. Cross River lost her status as a littoral state, right? After the federal government ceded the oil-rich Bakassi Peninsula to Cameroon. This was a decision that was made very, very clear in the Supreme Court. So much so that, if I quote, before delivering the lead judgment in this case, the court even dismissed Cross River's application, pointing out that this agreement, which initially gave the state rights to the 76 oil wells, was frustrated by the handing over of Bakassi to Cameroon, right? This means that it had no maritime boundary, and that is why the 76 oil wells were lost. Now, this is a legal issue. This is not an issue for us to debate on, or this was a Supreme Court ruling, an apex court ruling. On that note, are you coming now to say that the justification for this move by your governor is based off of new evidence that has come forth, Or would you just say this is an emotional plea of marginalization that you would like the federal government perhaps to equally visit with regards to this issue?
A combination of both. The humanity in us and the human face of legalism. Those are the combinations we are bringing to the table. That it will be a case of double jeopardy to inflict Cross River State with a unilateral cessation and ceding of Bakassi Peninsula and follow up with the seizure of Sanjoya, whereby the same Nigerian state, is it intended that Cross River State should be liquidated from the map of Nigeria? What has happened to the Green Tree Agreement that Obasanjo went and signed without consultation until today? That so-called Green Tree Agreement and the ceding of Bakassi has not been ratified by the Nigerian Parliament, which is why Bakassi is still a local government in Nigeria, because it had to be followed up with a ratification by the National Assembly of Nigeria under the international treaties to which Nigeria is a signatory. Why is Cross River singled out? Are we the only border state? Why is it not happening in semi-border? Why are we having train stations and other transportation means to Maradi in Chad Republic while Cross River State is being blockaded economically, physically, socially, and of course politically? What is our crime? That we should be exposed to external attacks? Nigeria does not care about us? These are the issues on the table. So if you talk about emotionality, we are talking about compassionate human face of the law. The Supreme Court had its facts when it delivered that judgment. With fresh facts, there can be a judicial review. It is not absolute in our country. Supreme Court decisions are not absolute. They can't revisit them. I remember the Amechi case, when Amechi's decision was taken that he should take over the governorship of Rivers State. The Supreme Court reviewed itself and made it impossible for individuals to now take positions, rather it is political parties which are on the ballot. That was reviewed. There are several other such cases, case laws, to ensure that the Bakassi case and indeed the Sanjoya wells can be revisited. We lost it at Bakassi. We cried out that the 10 years that was given between 2002 and 2012, we cried out to Nigeria to revisit it, that we had fresh facts. We were denied the opportunity even when Cross River State government offered to pay. It's so painful to us. I'm so emotional about it because I partook in the entire of that exercise. Cross Rivers are still paying the price. Part of the agreement, of the Green Tree Agreement, was that the Bakassi people should be resettled. Today, they are refugees in their own country. Nobody is talking about that. We are talking about Sanjoya wells again, and nobody wants to revisit it. Is Cross River State singled out for this punishment, being given the historic role it has played, either as individuals, by people like Michael Ani, who are to rescue Nigeria, by people like Udo Udoma, who was then in the southeastern state? Why would Cross River at all times in our history rescue Nigeria, and Nigeria decides to put the Cross River under the bus? Why is it so all the time? Are we second-class citizens in our own country? Are we not wanted?
All right.
When we are going to see the place, was there a referendum as required by the United Nations Charter for the right of indigenous people? There are 22 articles under that treaty. Did we explore any of them when we were being seeded? To ask Akwa Ibom people, Cross River people, the Ejagan people who are living in Usagede and others, and Atabong town, where they asked whether they want to belong to Cameroon or Nigeria, is not part of the international treaty. Why did Nigeria not insist on it? We are given sufficient marginalization, personal exclusion from the Nigerian state. And I think that Nigerians must wake up to the reality that the continuous putting down of the Nigerian, and just across the river, between Bamenda, between Buya, and down to the Anglophone Cameroon today, they are asking for cessation and asking for their own state. And this is proximate to Cross River, right from the Budu Cattle Ranch down to Atabong Town and Day Spring in Bakassi. Are they asking us to join them to also be seated? We've insisted to be Nigerians, and we have a choice to do so. But we should not be made to feel that we are second-class citizens because we are not wanted. And this is the case we are making this morning, that Cross River State must be assisted. We ought to get damages and reparation for ceding Bakassi without anything. What did Nigeria do for us after that? Shouldn't we be enjoying some type of moratorium in terms of taxation, in terms of even a drop into the why should we be treated as orphans? Don't we belong to this country? Are we not part of this? Have we not contributed enough? to this country. The first gunshot for the Nigerian Civil War was done in Gakem, the present Cross River State in Ogoja province. What happened to us thereafter? Is there even a miscellaneum, even an effigy to show that something happened in this place and that people suffered the trauma of having to go through the war? Have we paid that? Have we been paid that? Now again, we are in Bakassi, we are going through the same thing. So I say to you, a political solution is possible. Fresh facts have emerged to show that you cannot call a state Cross River and turn around to say it has no maritime boundary. It's not a contradiction. It's not an absurdity. It's not absurd to Nigerians to even hear themselves talk like that, as if they are foreigners and wanting to trade with the Cross River people. Our lives smaller than the lives of people living in Semeboda. Are they smaller than the lives of people living in Sokoto that have boundary with Chad, Niger?
All right, Honorable Cletus, you are very passionate about this subject, and you know you've made mention that the Supreme Court or Supreme Court cases is not absolute. You know, I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with you on that note. I mean, this is a legal issue that has been settled. You believe that, you know, you believe in seeking a political resolution to this matter, but you know that the governor of Akwa Ibom State, Pastor Umo Eno, maintains that there is no dispute as the matter has been legally settled. I'd like to know how you'd respond to Umo Eno, the governor, and your, you know, on this position, on his position here. You have said also that Governor Otu will be presenting proof that Cross River State is a littoral state to support the claim of these oil wells. I'd like for you to actually elaborate more, a little bit more on the nature of this new proof. And do you believe that it will be sufficient to bring about this political solution? And also, as a former member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, what is your view on how this potential political resolution could impact the political landscape in the South-South geopolitical zone? And I believe that we would also like to know if you think that the federal government should play any role in mediating or resolving this long-standing disputes between Cross River and Akwa Ibom states.
Yes, let me start with Pastor Umoeno. Pastor Umoeno come across to me as a compassionate pastor, and he's living his word as a pastor and bringing it to governance. As a PDP governor, as he then was, I remember that the Senate President was contesting the present Senate President was contesting to be Senate President. He moved government house from Uyo to Abuja. I met him on more than 4 occasions. And he came across as a bridge builder, as a man of integrity, as a man of compassion, because governance must have a human face. And he demonstrated it and put aside all political divides, all aside all partisan interests, and focused on the fact that a South-South person and a Akwa Ibom person must do that, and rallied around South-South senators to ensure that his brother emerged. I want to see him do the same thing. And this Senate President was the governor at that time when these whole issues were coming up. And I'm very happy to say that today he sits on the threshold of history to ensure that all that happened before today should now be concretized, and not to hold it on the iron springs and strings of law and legalism, and the court have decided. Like I said, there is no absoluteness, and you're saying that people will contest. And I've given you even examples in this country, and there are others. In any case, imagine that justice was miscarried and somebody was put in court for murder. And after sending him to life imprisonment, somebody comes up a year after to say, look, that murder, I committed it, was not that man that committed it. The law having taken a decision on him, will that decision not be revised? If somebody comes up to make and own up that I committed that crime for which you jailed this man, will he not be reversed in Nigerian law or any law for that matter in the world? We've seen that in several places all over the world, in which people were wrongfully accused, decisions over years. I think some man, even during the war, the First and Second World War, some people were jailed for wrong reasons, and when there were reparations paid to them. In this case, we have enough evidence which even Governor Umoeno is aware. I don't want to make it public yet until both of them come on television and sit in the round table, in the table of brotherhood, and say to themselves, sorry for what you suffered on account of our error or the human error. It was not deliberate. I want to see Umoino do that. Having said so, the political solution is already underway. It is requiring the president's endorsement. That is all that we are waiting for now. Every other proof, every other evidence that ought to be shown has been brought to the table, and both the federal government and the Akwa Ibom state government and Cross River government have come to the conclusion that it was wrong. But the fear and shame of reaction from the populace is what is keeping us down now, so that there should be sufficient information in the public space and in the public domain that this was indeed a genuine error made against Cross River State, and they've suffered it all these years. Let the matter come to a conclusion on this. For the reason, like I said, if there are refugees and people are scampering in Cross River State, they will empty into Akwa Ibom, and Akwa Ibom will have a responsibility to take care of them. So to that extent, Akwa Ibom have a responsibility, a human responsibility, a brotherly responsibility, having been carved out of Cross River State, to take care of Cross Riverians. Like I said, Governor of Akwa Ibom, then present Senate President, offered to give 500 million to Cross River State every month on account of that cessation. On his own, the federal government said, no, we will take it over and put it under ecological fund. And Cross River was receiving 500 million naira on account of that, but at a point, they stopped it. But that was just like a drop in the ocean, given what we would have been getting as our oil revenue. Then, of course, you ask the second question, whether the state will have any stake.
Briefly,
the state
please.
of Cross River State and our governor. Hello?
Briefly, please, summarize your point on that.
Hello?
Can you hear us? I just said briefly.
What was the second question?
Briefly
summarize.
All right, unfortunately, we don't have enough time to round up your thoughts on that second question. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. We have run out of time. Thank you indeed.